And just a short time ago, I was joined from Geneva by the UNHCR's Director of International Protection, Volker Turk. Volker Turk, welcome to Lateline.
Hello. Good evening.
The UNHCR is not a signatory to this agreement, but you will be involved in its implementation on the ground in Malaysia. Does that amount to full UNHCR endorsement?
Well, it is an arrangement between two governments. It's a bilateral arrangement between the government of Malaysia and the government of Australia. And UNHCR is, as you said, not a party to this agreement, nor is it going to sign or has signed the agreement. We are implicated because we have a very particular operational role in Malaysia, given the fact that we conduct the refugee status determination process, the registration process, and are actively engaged with the refugee communities, with the various refugee communities in Malaysia, in close collaboration with the government.
But I guess that the mere fact that, as the Australian Minister points out, the entire deal is only going ahead on the basis that yourselves and also the International Organisation for Migration can fulfil the roles envisaged, does that imply that if you're happy to fulfil those roles, that's welfare and help with things like housing and education and health, that you in fact support this deal?
You see, we are not in a position to endorse it or otherwise because we haven't signed the arrangement. However, we have been consulted by both governments on a number of issues in relation to the actual text of the arrangement and its operational guidance, and we have made our views quite well known in the sense that we needed to see fundamental protection safeguards being put in place in the arrangement. Obviously now, the critical test will lie in its implementation, and we are going to remain engaged in that phase to ensure that the concerns and that the various issues of the protection safeguards are properly put in place.
Are you comfortable with those protections as they're outlined in the agreement?
We have insisted that the arrangement needs to have proper protection safeguards in the sense of protection of against refoulement, which is included in the arrangement. We have made sure that the arrangement allows lawful stay in Malaysia until such time that a durable solution is found. Again, these are guarantees that are mentioned in the arrangement. We have also had discussions with both governments about the need to ensure that children have access to education, that there is possibilities for self-reliance, that people have access, the transferees have access to healthcare. And all of these various issues are enshrined in the agreement, and we just now have to ensure that the arrangement is properly implemented.
Well, as you say, I suppose the proof will be in the implementation, and under the agreement you are going to be providing health and education services together with the International Organisation for Migration. You spent some time in Malaysia. What's the situation on the ground now? How adequate are current facilities, health facilities, education facilities to handle another 800 people?
Well, Malaysia at the moment has about 94,000 refugees and asylum seekers. UNHCR has been actively engaged operationally with these refugee communities, and over time we have seen quite some progress, both in terms of access to healthcare, in terms of UNHCR being able to allow for community education, but also in terms of a toleration that is exercised in relation to asylum seekers and refugees. Obviously, it's not without problems, but given the fact that this arrangement in relation to 800 transferees now makes it very clear what the standard is, we hope that this will provide an entry point into a further enhancing of the protection situation in Malaysia.
But are you in a position to provide those facilities now? I mean, are there the health facilities, the medical centres, the schools there now ready to be used?
We have, together with non-governmental organizations, with, for instance, mobile clinics that are being arranged with a number of partners, we have these various services covered. Obviously, and as the arrangement foresees, there will need to be further improvement of that to ensure that 800 more people, if that were the case, would actually be covered by this. I should say in this context that the refugee population also benefits in the sense that Australia has offered 4,000 resettlement places, which is a significant increase on the part of Australia to ensure that resettlement is becoming a viable solution for many more people than that was done in the past.
Asylum seekers sent from Australia will be able to work, and as we've discussed, they'll have access to education and health. Does that effectively create a two-tiered, two classes of asylum seeker?
Well, at the moment, the refugee population and the asylum seeker population in Malaysia benefits from a number of informal arrangements. The government and the Malaysian government announced in June a broader program of regularization for irregular migrants. We are currently in discussions with the Malaysian government about the possibilities to include refugees and asylum seekers in this program. We can't yet say whether we will be successful in that regard, but we hope that the arrangement will provide an important entry point in these discussions.
What about the treatment of unaccompanied minors under this agreement? The Australian minister's made it very clear that they'll be dealt with on an individual basis. There'll be pre-transfer assessments. Are you comfortable that any unaccompanied minors who are sent to Malaysia will have adequate protection?
We are still in discussions with the Australian government about the pre-transfer arrangements, and our concern is that we make sure that there are proper vulnerability assessments, that there is a proper best interest determination when it comes to minors, and also that family links are being looked at when pre-transfer arrangements, pre-transfer assessments are being conducted. These discussions haven't yet been concluded, but we hope very much that our concerns are going to be taken into account in the finalization of these pre-transfer arrangements.
At the same time, though, this agreement says that arrivals in Australia will be transferred to Malaysia within 72 hours. That's not a great deal of time for an assessment.
It is indeed, depending on the individual case, it may well take longer, and this is, for instance, one of the points that we are in discussions about with the Australian government, to ensure that, depending on the case, that indeed we ensure that adequate time is put forward to conduct vulnerability and protection assessments in these various cases.
So have you presented the Australian government with a specific list of what you'd like to see, and what sort of a hearing have you got?
Well, we have been in discussions with the Australian government about this, and at the moment I can say that we are confident that our concerns will be taken into account. But of course we have to see how it's being implemented, and we have to see how these pre-transfer arrangements are being finalized.
This, of course, brings me to the question, what happens if your concerns are not taken into account? What happens if there's a problem with this agreement? Are you comfortable with the monitoring arrangements? Will the UNHCR be too close to the agreement to actually provide any effective monitoring?
Well, obviously it's very clear that we have said all along that the critical test of this arrangement lies in its implementation, and we will monitor very carefully how this arrangement is being implemented, both when it comes to the pre-transfer assessments, but also at the other end in Malaysia, how these transferees are going to be dealt with. So we will be very closely monitoring this from our protection perspective, from a human rights perspective, and we will, as we always do in such instances, we will make sure that if there are concerns, that these concerns will be communicated to both governments, and to ensure that we can ensure corrective action.
And if there's not corrective action, what are the options available to the UNHCR?
Well, if there's no corrective action, we will have to see how we can continue to remain engaged. But we are confident that as long as we remain engaged, we will be able to overcome these difficulties.
Volker Turk, many thanks for talking to Lateline tonight.
Thank you.